But why should there be limits to a woman's ambitions? I would think you, of all people, would understand. There's always more to be achieved.
Since the earliest days of Hollywood, smart, talented, and extremely determined women have been making great strides in the world of entertainment, in all areas of the industry. They've done brave things, savvy things, things that had their male counterparts shaking in their shoes. By using much more than just their beauty and feminine wiles, women have positively impacted the landscape of both the television and motion picture industries right from the start. And, as has often been noted, they did it in high heels. To recognize every woman who has been influential in making American film and television what it is today, and what it continues to become, we'd need a whole lot more than a single month. Oprah Winfrey alone would require a full year. We could devote days to Kathryn Bigelow for being the first woman to win a Best Director Oscar, and weeks to Hattie McDaniel for being the first African-American woman to win an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Imagine how much time we'd need to celebrate Rita Moreno, Jane Fonda, and Cicely Tyson for just being Rita Moreno, Jane Fonda, and Cicely Tyson. And so many others who, regrettably, you've probably never even heard of. All of them gifted, gutsy, and glorious girls. To honor these unsung heroines of Hollywood, we've chosen 5 who embody all that their proud sisterhood has to offer. Kicking us off is Mary Pickford. The word pioneer falls incredibly short in describing this feisty, forward-thinking dynamo. Known as the girl with the golden curls, Pickford was literally present at the birth of movie making, screen testing in 1909 for D.W. Griffith and the Biograph Company, generally credited as America's first film production company. Although Griffith didn't cast her in that film, he had every intention of making her a star, signing her to Biograph and paying her twice what other actors earned at the time, $10 a day as opposed to $5. Ooh, take that, wage gap. She would go on to appear in 52 feature films, working with the legendary Cecil B. DeMille and other Hollywood creatives who, like Mary herself, were using their talent and intellect to create and define this new and evolving mega-genre of entertainment, technology, and lifestyle. Long before the idea of women supporting women in the workplace was a thing, Mary showed her ability to be a girl's girl by introducing her friends, the Gish sisters, Dorothy and Lillian, to D.W. Griffith, never once entertaining the notion that they might be potential rivals for her title of America's sweetheart. It was as if she knew that bringing other talented women into her sphere would only reflect well on her, and karma was quickly to reward her. In 1916, with the help of her mother, who was evidently a hardball negotiator at a time when women were barely allowed a voice, let alone a major say in financial dealings, Pickford talked Adolph Zucker, of what would eventually become Paramount Studios, into paying her the unheard of sum of $10,000 a week, as well as half the profits from her films. Oh, and did we mention this contract also included full production authority of her movies? Because yeah, that happened too. And if that wasn't enough, Mary married matinee idol and industry heavyweight Douglas Fairbanks. The superstars were Hollywood's first power couple. Determined to have control over their own artistic careers, they, along with D.W. Griffith and funny friend Charlie Chaplin, formed a little production company by the name of United Artists. You may have heard of it? Yeah, we thought so. Mary was anything but a silent partner, taking part in every element of filmmaking. And speaking of not being silent, United Artists produced Mary's first talkie, Coquette.
Oh, why don't you leave me alone?
For which she would win the Oscar for Best Actress. In addition to all this, Mary Pickford essentially invented the concept of charitable celebrity activism by using her status to help sell war bonds during World War I, and by forming the Motion Picture Relief Fund to aid struggling or destitute fellow artists. A true champion of the idea that movie making was and should be regarded as an art form, she led some of the earliest efforts in the area of film preservation, and was a great proponent of creating a museum to honor motion pictures and those who worked so hard to create them. It mattered, Mary. It mattered a lot.
That's wonderful. You made me very, very happy. And thank you.
Next up, Dorothy Dandridge. The stunningly beautiful and multi-talented Dorothy Dandridge began her entertainment career in the midst of the Great Depression, with a bit part in the iconic Marx Brothers comedy A Day at the Races. Her focus then shifted temporarily to nightclub singer and big band vocalist, but she was soon in front of the cameras again, playing a number of the kinds of small and stereotyped roles available to black actresses at the time.
I want a scat hat with a trim brim, a zag with a rip zip to look plenty hip, to see my Sunday slam.
Sadly, prominent roles weren't the only thing that were difficult for Dorothy to earn in 1940s Hollywood. Equality and respect were also in very short supply, as Laliberte, portraying the star in HBO's 1999 biopic Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, so poignantly reminded us. The determined Miss Dandridge did not let the ignorances nor injustices of the era keep her from soldiering on. There's an anecdote about how she got herself the career-defining role of Carmen in Otto Preminger's Carmen Jones. Famously elegant, with a regal beauty and class to spare, Dandridge was not initially who powerhouse director Preminger saw in the part. The actress who would play Carmen needed to be earthy, unpolished, and passionate, so Dandridge took matters into her own hands, dressing the part, which is to say, scandalously. And as the story goes, bursting into Preminger's office fully in character, prompting him to offer her a screen test on the spot. Her unorthodox approach was not in vain. The role of Carmen earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress in a Leading Role, making her the first black woman to enjoy that distinction. While many believe she should have walked away with the statue, Dandridge lost out to Grace Kelly, perhaps unsurprisingly given the racial climate of the day. Still, a nomination was no small thing, and something for which Dandridge will, rightfully, always be remembered. In terms of how monumental Dandridge's nomination was, consider the fact that it wasn't until nearly a half-century later, in 2002, that a black woman was actually awarded the Oscar in that category. And in an instance of pure poetic justice as well as cosmic connectivity, it went to the aforementioned Laliberte, who played Dandridge so magnificently just 4 years prior. It bears mentioning that the week of the 1954 Oscar broadcast, Dandridge happened to be performing. In fact, she was headlining at the venerable Waldorf Astoria, also a first for an African American. Yet another milestone on Dandridge's impressive resume, she was the first black woman to appear on the cover of Life magazine.
How can a lady drink alone? How can a lady dance alone? No lady can romance alone. I ought to have a sweetie pie.
Lucille Ball. Next up, a gal who literally invented the way television sitcoms are made. Born just after the turn of the century, Lucille Ball truly did come from humble beginnings. At the tender age of 3, she lost her father to typhoid fever. From then on, life was about as difficult as it could be for the young, not yet a redhead who would grow up to make the whole world laugh. Perhaps it was her need to overcome her childhood of poverty and isolation that ignited the comedy's spark in Lucy. But even as a young teen, she knew she wanted to perform. At the age of 15, she enrolled in a school for dramatic arts where one of her classmates was none other than Bette Davis, who, by the way, would also go on to be a fairly significant female force in Hollywood. Believe it or not, the teenage Lucille struggled with shyness and stage fright to the point that a school administrator told Lucy's mother that, as an actress, Lucy was wasting her time. Yeah, guess you can put that guy on the "they're still kicking themselves" list, along with the 12 publishers who rejected Harry Potter and the guy who invented New Coke. After a stint as a model, Lucy managed to get a handle on the whole screen presence thing, and moved on to being the queen of the B-movies, appearing in an astounding 72 films in 10 years' time.
Just a minute. This has gone far enough. Don't you know there are ladies present?
She eventually leveled up to starring alongside the likes of comedy great Bob Hope, and from there, her star just went on rising. In 1940, she played the lead in Too Many Girls. Cue the handsome Cuban bandleader. Enter Desi Arnaz, her smoking hot and notably younger co-star. How's that for a meet cute? Sadly, the film's title proved heartbreakingly prophetic in terms of their 20-year relationship. Desi was a major player, and not of the Congo drum. But this isn't about that. Being the Ricardos is, and it's awesome, which is why we strongly suggest you give the Aaron Sorkin-directed Amazon flick a watch. Because Kidman and Bardem are riveting as Lucy and Desi, and the rest of the cast is pitch perfect. It's a fitting homage to one of the most important shows in television history, and the underlying love and professional respect that exists between the real-life Mr. and Mrs. Ernaz is not only evident in their performances, it's downright touching. Dysfunctional, yes, but touching.
That wasn't even why I married him.
While we all love Lucy the comedienne, there's also plenty to admire about Lucy the businesswoman. Not only were she and Desi the first to be made billionaires by television, but they were the first to film a multi-camera sitcom in front of a live audience. Hers was the first pregnancy to be chronicled on television, and Little Ricky's birth was watched by over 40 million viewers. Hell, Lucille Ball invented the rerun. Years later, when she bought Desi out of Desolute Productions, she became the first female owner of a production company. And she didn't hold that title and name only. Lucy really did run the place, and she ran it well. So well, in fact, that if not for Lucille Ball, you know, that girl who was too shy to handle acting class, the world would have never known the joy of such mid-century masterpieces as The Untouchables, The Dick Van Dyke Show, The Lucy Show, and perhaps most notably, Star Trek. Yep, as a woman in that industry, she literally went where no man had gone before, by putting her faith in Gene Roddenberry's vision for a show originally entitled The Cage. At $600,000, this space western was the most expensive pilot ever filmed, and it tanked. Rather than taking Roddenberry out with a Vulcan nerve pinch, the wise woman at the studio's helm made the highly illogical choice to finance a second pilot. And thanks to Lucy, Star Trek has lived long and prospered ever since. Lucille Ball's influence on the entertainment industry cannot be understated. Generations of female comics, including Joan Rivers, have credited her as their inspiration. By breaking down barriers and never taking no for an answer when it came to what she knew to be good business, Lucy made it possible for funny women to be taken seriously both on and off camera. No wonder we still love her.
Honestly, Ethel, why are men such babies? I wish I could get away with acting like that.
Mary Blair. Chances are you've never heard of Mary Blair.
I want you to meet Mary Blair. Mary, this is Julie Reams.
Hello, Julie.
Will you tell her what you're doing here, Mary?
We start this way, making a preliminary sketch. Then we'd make a model to scale.
But if you've ever rode the Disney World monorail through the lobby of the Contemporary Hotel, you've probably marveled at her work. She's responsible for the enormous, quirky, and colorful piece of artwork known as the Grand Canyon Concourse mural that adorns this vast space. And if the stylized characters in the mural look familiar, that's because Mary Blair is also responsible for the aesthetic of this iconic attraction. Mary was a talented watercolor artist before going to work as an illustrator for Walt Disney in 1940. Though not the first female animator, that distinction goes to Retta Scott, who was the first to receive an on-screen credit for animation in 1938, Mary was a major force in the animation process during what is sometimes referred to as the studio's golden age. She designed the dreamlike concept art for the classics Fantasia, Dumbo, Cinderella, and Lady and the Tramp, introducing her unique modernist style to Disney's formerly traditional way of doing things. She was especially admired for her use of vivid colors in bold, contrasting combinations. Next, we have Sherry Lansing. Okay, how's this for a career trajectory? From reading screenplays for a measly $5 a script, to being an Academy Award-nominated producer, to becoming the first female to head up a major movie studio.
And so I saw that film could be about something, but also change the way you think.
Well, there you have it. Sherry Lansing was indeed a trailblazer. After briefly flirting with acting and modeling, she decided she'd rather be behind the scenes. She started at MGM, where in 2 short years, she went from being chief story editor to vice president of creative affairs. Not too shabby. From this impressive position, she moved on to the role of senior vice president of production at Columbia Pictures. 1980 found her at 20th Century Fox as head of production. At only 35 years old, she was the first woman to be a production president at a major studio, an achievement she would eventually repeat elsewhere. Despite her auspicious arrival at Fox, her time there was not particularly successful. Her responsibilities were more administrative, and she spent 3 years being undermined by colleagues, male ones we suspect, who second-guessed her instincts and made it difficult for her to live up to her considerable potential. That is, if you think turning out hits like Taps and Chariots of Fire can be called not living up to one's potential. From Fox, she happily went back to producing, joining forces with Stanley R. Jaffe to form an independent production company. Gen X can thank Sherry for basically introducing them to Meryl Streep in Kramer vs. Kramer. They can also blame her for any bunny and/or bathtub-related nightmares they may have experienced after seeing a certain 1987 psychological thriller for the first time. In 1992, Lansing became the chair of Paramount Pictures, and under her leadership, important and memorable things happened. Things like, I don't know, Forrest Gump, Braveheart, and Titanic. Maybe you've heard of them. And when she wasn't shaking the shards of glass from that broken ceiling out of her hair, she was, and remains to this day, an avid philanthropist and all-around kind and pleasant person. You go, Lansing.
That is really what is so wonderful about the movie industry. Not only do we get to make films that matter, but we also work in a culture where we are encouraged to speak out.
Closing in on the end of our list here, another woman animator to be reckoned with is Niki Yang. Born in South Korea, she came to the States to study animation. A CalArts grad, she's become one of the most prominent women in her field, as not only an animator, but as a writer and voice actor as well. And it's easy to see why.
I've been expecting you because of my proximity radar.
Remember, eventually we have to let them go. We have to promise not to get too attached to them.
Yep, they're both Niki. And we certainly hope you'll be able to draw some inspiration from her success. Get it? Because she's an animator.
You have to trust yourself and then just keep doing what you want to do. Just you believe it and just stick to it. And hopefully it will reward. And then, you'll be happy because you are doing what you want to do.
And finally, we have the incredible Shonda Rhimes. First and foremost, she's a storyteller, a wonderfully prolific writer and creator who can dash off tween-friendly fare like The Princess Diaries, as well as addictive grown-up drama like Grey's Anatomy.
I think it's absolutely essential, actually, to pick a show that you love, a show that you think is good, and dissect the crap out of it.
Time magazine, on more than one occasion, has called her one of the 100 most influential people in the world. Yes, the world. Not like she needs this world because she's got her own. It's called Shondaland. What's also kind of cool is that back in 1999, she co-wrote a film we mentioned earlier called Introducing Dorothy Dandridge. Hello again, cosmic connectivity. Scandal, Bridgerton, How to Get Away with Murder. Is it just us, or is Miss Rhimes more dialed in than most when it comes to creating strong, dimensional, admirable, and intensely authentic female characters, whom she writes with depth, compassion, honesty, and humanity? Her success is so intrinsically tied to this feature of her work, it's almost as if Shonda's own immeasurable aptitude functions as an ongoing validation of the hardworking and talented women who came before her. Need some proof?
That doesn't change the fact that I earned this job and I worked very hard for it. I need to feel as valued as you say you value me. I need to be able to look in the mirror. This is just not enough.
And if that didn't convince you, here it is, right out of Shonda's own mouth.
I'm a writer, I imagine. I make stuff up for a living. Dream job. No. I'm a titan. Dream job. I create television, I executive produce television, I make television, a great deal of television. In one way or another, this TV season, I'm responsible for bringing about 70 hours of programming to the world.
We hear you, Miss Rhimes. Just like we heard and marveled at, respected and loved Lucy and Mary, Sherry and Dorothy. We salute you all for the chances you were not given, but took anyway, for the disregard and condescension you endured, and for letting it fuel you, not drain you, for knowing your worth and having the courage to make others see it, for making a difference, for trusting yourselves. In Women's History Month, in every month, we honor you, the storytellers, the problem solvers, the laugh makers, the heart stealers, the brilliant forces of nature and business that you are and will always be. You've entertained us, but more importantly, you've educated us. And for that, we're grateful.
You know, a lot of people will tell you no, and a lot of people will tell you that's not the way things are done, or that's not the way things have been done. Well, how things have been done haven't necessarily been the greatest way to do things. So come up with your own way to do things and move forward from there.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe and hit that like button.